Let me paint you a picture. You're sitting at your kitchen table, phone in one hand, bank statement in the other, and you're doing the math. Again, you've been making payments for, 8, 9 months now? And somehow the number barely moved. Like, you paid hundreds of dollars and the balance went down maybe $60. And you're sitting there thinking, am I ever actually going to get out of this? Or is this just my life now? If that feeling is familiar, I want you to stay with me for the next 12 minutes. Because today we're going to talk about not just how to pay off debt, but how to pay it off fast. And more importantly, why the advice most people follow makes the whole thing take 2 to 3 times longer than it needs to. My name is John, and I spend way too much time thinking about the mathematics and psychology of debt. If you're someone who feels like they're throwing money at debt every month, but never actually getting anywhere, like you're bailing out a sinking boat with a paper cup, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Section 1. Why most people stay in debt longer than they should. Okay, before we get into the strategy, I need to address something that nobody in the personal finance space talks about honestly enough. And that's this. The system is not designed to help you pay off debt quickly. Full stop. Here's the thing. When you carry a credit card balance, the bank is making money every single day. Not every month. Every single day. Credit card interest compounds daily in most cases, which means the longer you carry that balance, the more profitable you are as a customer. Banks don't want you to pay off your debt fast. They want you to make the minimum payment, stay just comfortable enough to keep spending, and drip money into their pockets for years. And here's what most people don't realize. The minimum payment system is one of the most financially destructive products ever invented for consumers. Let's look at the math directly. Say you have $6,000 in credit card debt at 20% APR, which is actually slightly below the current national average in the U.S., which as of 2024 sits closer to 21.5%. Your minimum payment might be around $120 a month. Sounds manageable, right? If you only make that minimum payment, you will be in debt for over 7 years, and you'll pay roughly $5,400 in interest on a $6,000 balance. You'll have paid almost double what you originally owed. That's not bad luck. That's a minimum payment system working exactly as intended for the bank. Now, you might be thinking, John, I know minimum payments are bad. I just can't afford to pay more. And I hear that. We're going to get to that. But first, let me show you what even a small change does to that same scenario. If you increase your payment from $120 to just $200 a month, that's $80 more. You pay off that debt in 3 years and 4 months instead of 7, and you save over $3,000 in interest. $80 a month saves you $3,000. That's the power of understanding the math. Section 2. The 2 debt payoff methods, and which one actually wins. All right, so you're committed to paying off debt faster. Now you need a system. And there are 2 main frameworks that dominate this conversation: the debt avalanche and the debt snowball. Let me break both down, because the debate between these 2 is actually more nuanced than most people make it out to be. The debt avalanche works like this. You list all your debts. You make minimum payments on everything. Then you take every extra dollar you can find and throw it at the debt with the highest interest rate first. Once that's gone, you roll that payment to the next highest rate, and so on. Mathematically, the debt avalanche is the winner, period. It minimizes the total interest you pay over time. If you have 3 debts, say a credit card at 22%, a personal loan at 14%, and a car loan at 6%, the avalanche says attack the 22% card first. You'll pay less in total interest than with any other approach. The debt snowball works differently. You list all your debts in order of balance size, smallest to largest, ignoring interest rates. You attack the smallest balance first, regardless of rate. When it's gone, you roll that payment to the next smallest. Now, purely mathematically, the snowball is less efficient. You'll likely pay more in total interest than with the avalanche. But here's the thing, and this is where the psychology comes in. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that people who use the debt snowball method are significantly more likely to actually eliminate their debt entirely, because each small payoff gives you a real, tangible win. Your brain gets a shot of dopamine. You feel progress. You stay motivated. So what do I recommend? Here's my honest take. If you have relatively similar interest rates across your debts, use the Snowball. The motivation advantage outweighs the small mathematical cost. If you have one debt with a dramatically higher interest rate than the others, like a payday loan or a high APR credit card, attack that one first regardless, because the math difference is too significant to ignore. This is where it gets really interesting. Some people do what I call a hybrid approach. They knock out one tiny debt first to get a quick win and build momentum, then switch to pure Avalanche after that. This is actually a really smart psychological hack, because it combines the motivational boost of the Snowball with the long-term efficiency of the Avalanche. Don't be afraid to customize the system to fit how your brain works. Section 3. Interest rate negotiation, the move nobody talks about. Here's what most people don't realize. You can often reduce the interest rate you're paying right now, today, with a phone call. I know that sounds too simple, but it's real and it's dramatically underused. If you have a credit card you've been carrying a balance on and you have a decent payment history, even if it's not perfect, call the number on the back of your card and ask for a lower APR. Just say, I've been a customer for a while, I've been making my payments, and I'd like to request a lower interest rate. A 2023 survey by LendingTree found that among people who called and asked for a lower credit card rate, roughly 76% received a reduction. 76%. Most people just never ask. Now, the reduction won't always be massive, but even dropping from 22% to 17% on a $5,000 balance saves you hundreds of dollars and shaves months off your payoff timeline. This is a 5-minute phone call. Make it. The second move in this category is a balance transfer. Many credit cards offer 0% introductory APR on balance transfers for 12 to 21 months. If you can transfer a high-interest balance to a 0% card and aggressively pay it down during that window, you could save thousands in interest and get out of debt dramatically faster. The catch is to know there's typically a balance transfer fee of 3% to 5% of the amount transferred, and you need to be disciplined enough to actually pay it down before the promotional rate expires, because when it does, the rate often jumps to full APR, sometimes even higher. This strategy only works if you have a concrete plan and stick to it. Section 4. Finding the money, the income and expense audit. Now, the part most debt payoff videos skip right over. Where does the extra money actually come from? Look, I'm not going to stand here and tell you to stop buying lattes. That's not a debt payoff strategy. That's noise. What I'm going to tell you is that most people have more financial flexibility than they think. They just haven't looked hard enough for it. Step 1 is an honest expense audit. Pull up the last 3 months of transactions and look for what I call dead money. Subscriptions you forgot about, services you're paying for but not using, memberships you signed up for and haven't touched. A 2022 survey by Chase Bank found that the average American spends around $219 per month on subscriptions. Cancel everything you don't actively use. Every single thing. Step 2 is a negotiation sweep. Call your internet provider. Call your insurance company. Ask for a better rate. Providers regularly offer better deals to existing customers who ask. They just don't proactively offer them. I've heard from people who saved $50 to $150 a month just from this step alone. Step 3, and I want to be direct here, is income. Cutting expenses only gets you so far. If your debt load is significant, you likely need to increase what's coming in, even temporarily. This could mean picking up extra shifts, freelancing, selling things you own, or a part-time side hustle for 6 to 12 months. The goal isn't to do this forever. The goal is to create a short-term income surge that you throw entirely at debt, then stop once you're out. Here's what most people don't realize about extra income during debt payoff. An extra $500 a month thrown at a $6,000 balance at 20% interest doesn't just cut your timeline in half. It cuts it to about 11 months. 11 months versus 7 years. That's the math of intensity. Section 5. The psychological side of debt payoff. I want to spend a minute here, because this part matters as much as the math. Paying off debt is not primarily a financial challenge. It's a psychological one. There's a well-documented concept in behavioral economics called the debt stress spiral. It works like this. You're stressed about debt, which impairs your executive function and decision-making, which leads to worse financial choices. Impulse purchases, avoidance behaviors, emotional spending, which adds to the debt, which increases the stress. Round and round. The research here is striking. A 2013 study published in Science found that financial stress consumes so much cognitive bandwidth that it can reduce effective IQ by the equivalent of losing a night's sleep. When you're drowning in debt anxiety, you literally don't think as clearly, which means the most important thing you can do for your financial future is not a spreadsheet technique. It's reducing the psychological weight of debt by making real, visible progress. This is why having a written payoff plan, not just a vague intention, changes everything. When you can see your payoff date written down, when you can see the balance dropping each month, when you can see the finish line, your brain treats the problem as solvable. And solvable problems don't cause the same cognitive paralysis as open-ended ones. The action here: create a simple debt payoff tracker. It doesn't have to be fancy. Write down every debt, the balance, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. Then calculate your target payoff date based on what you can realistically throw at it each month. Seeing that date written down, even if it's 2 years out, is one of the most motivating things you can do. Section 6. The debt-free finish line, and what comes after. Here's something nobody talks about in debt payoff content, and I think it's genuinely important. Paying off debt is not the finish line. It's the starting line. The moment your last debt payment clears is a massive financial inflection point, and most people squander it by allowing lifestyle creep to absorb the freed-up cash flow within a few months. Suddenly, the $400 a month you were putting toward debt just disappears into general spending. The move is to redirect those payments immediately, the same day your debt is paid off, into a savings or investment account. Don't give yourself time to get used to having that money. Set up the automatic transfer before you make the final debt payment. The behavioral rule here is simple. Keep your lifestyle exactly where it is, and let the extra cash flow build wealth instead of fund consumption. If you redirect $400 a month into a broad index fund immediately after paying off debt, and you do that consistently for 20 years at a historical average return of roughly 8%, you're looking at around $235,000 for money you were already spending. That's the compounding reward for getting out of debt and staying disciplined. So let's land this plane. The fastest path out of debt is not a secret. It's a combination of understanding the math, choosing the right payoff method for your psychology, negotiating your rates, finding every dollar you can free up, and maintaining the mental and emotional discipline to see it through. Here's the thing. Debt is not a character flaw. It's a math problem with a solution. And now you know the solution. Pick your method, Avalanche or Snowball. Make the phone call about your interest rate this week. Do the expense audit. Write down your payoff date. And then go to work. If this gave you a clearer picture of how to actually get out of debt, hit the thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people find this content who need it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And drop in the comments, how much debt are you working to pay off right now? I read every single one. You're closer to debt-free than you think. You just got to know the moves. I'll see you in the next one.